coming out tonight on a cold and rainy night, but the weather is appropriate, being the 39th anniversary of the assassination of Martin Luther King, who constantly spoke about military exploitation of the poor. And I kind of think of the counter-recruitment movement as an extension of Dr. King's work. The counter-recruitment movement's been around a long time, but it expanded after the No Child Left Behind Act of 2001 was implemented. In this 600-page bill, there's a paragraph in section 9528 of this bill, short paragraph, that mandates military recruiters to get the contact information of high school students. At the same time, it makes the high schools inform the parents and the students of their right to opt out. The bill also has a paragraph that says that recruiters should have equal access in their high schools, alongside with career opportunities for the students and college opportunities. However, we found out that the career opportunities and the college opportunities are presented to students once, maybe twice a year at career fairs or job fairs, which the recruiters are at, but recruiters are granted tables at the schools all the time, sometimes weekly. And we also found out that the opt-out policies that the high schools were implementing were very inconsistent from school to school. They weren't mandatory, that they didn't follow up on the return of the letters. That I would say that at an average of about 5% of letters are returned on Long Island, and some schools couldn't even tell us. So we met with high school administrators, and we spoke with particularly the schools that have recruiters in the schools all the time to try to get balanced information in the schools. And they wanted pretty much nothing to do with us because of fear of losing funding that they are getting from the federal government. We also found out that high schools give an ASVAB test, which stands for the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. And the students are given this test under the pretense that they'll find out what areas they're good in and what they should pursue as a career. However, the information is given over to military recruiters, and they use that as a recruiting tool. We formed a Long Island Veterans for Peace group, which is pretty active on Long Island, and they have formed a Speakers and Advocacy Bureau to present the realities of war. These are combat veterans who want to go into the schools and give the students the side of the military that recruiters won't tell them. We've sent out a lot of letters to schools so far. Nobody's invited us. I guess counter-recruiting started as a privacy issue for us because this information was given out unknowingly, pretty much. And you know, we're told to watch what our kids are looking at on the TV. We're told to watch what websites they're going to and who they're talking to on the internet. They have the GPS systems in their phones and their televisions. But then we kind of like trust them when it comes to talking to military recruiters. And we know the information is totally truthful.
So one quick question. Are you forced as a student to take that armed force test? You have to take it?
It's not a mandatory test, but we have visited schools that give the test to everybody.
As if it were.
Right. And they're also given the option to opt out of having their information on that test given to recruiters, but the schools don't know that either.
Same intentionally through the test.
It's not a right or wrong type of test. It's just like it's a test to see where their interest lies.
Okay, but say intentionally trying to throw the test. Are you liable for the result of the test, or will it affect them in school?
No, it doesn't affect them in school at all. It affects their entrance into the military. It is a type of entrance exam. And if they do well on the test, they'll keep that test. And then they start heavily recruiting the kids who do well on the test because they're halfway there. All they have to do then is sign on the dotted line and they're in. So,
young and dumb.
yeah, well, we found the most heavily recruited schools are in the lower income areas. And you can tell by who's coming back from the war in coffins now. It's all, you know, Brentwood lost 5 kids already. You know, it's definitely an economic draft going on. So we're really out there just to try to give balanced information to students and get equal access in. The students really have to organize. You know, we need help. It's a very small group of us out there. We demonstrate in Patchogue on the first Saturday of the month. We're in, we go to Lindenhurst on the 3rd Saturday of the month, and we're in where are we? Huntington, the 4th Saturday of the month. You know, giving out informational leaflets, explaining what goes on.
Have any school that you in yet?
Excuse me?
Have any school that you inside in?
Just Ward Melville. And the kids would have had excellent questions. You know, they want to know. They want to know.
Why is it right? Is it it's a citizen?
Right. And I do have the equal access law in San Diego at the state court level. They fought it. They fought the equal access law, saying
it's a fairly enforced thing, so you should be able to go to any school that receives federal funding by law.
Right. But they're afraid. They're intimidated by the military, and they're intimidated. You know, by right, they could lose funding. We know the situation of the schools and their funding.
Really?
Yeah.
It's something we'll find it. It's true.
Well, you know, we could, like San Diego did, we could take them to court and fight it, but we don't want to get to that point. You know, we're trying to protect the kids and fill them in.
1984.
Oh, yeah. That's my portion.
I am prepared to die, but there is no cause for which I am prepared to kill. These words of Mohandas Gandhi are the theme for my message tonight. Aaron spoke about the efforts to deter young men and women from enlisting by pointing to the government's tactics in the high schools. And we also worked to alert the students to the risks that enlistees will face. But I wanted to address another part of our effort, which focuses on those who have serious questions about the morality of participating in war. To address this concern, in the spring of 2005, the Southern Peace Network sponsored a workshop on the topic of conscientious objection. As a preliminary exercise, we were asked to take a survey of 5 people under 25, 5 people over 25, and asked them a series of questions. Well, the first question was, what is a conscientious objector? Well, we never got past that first question because no one had ever heard of the phrase, and we didn't know what on earth I was talking about. But although they're not familiar with that exact term, conscientious objector, everyone is really a conscientious objector to some degree. Everyone has a line beyond which they will not move. They won't go past that point. And it's important for kids to consider what is that point in their life. Who would they kill? Would they use nuclear weapons? Would they use chemical weapons? Would they just target military? Would they target civilians? Would they hurt anyone? So we want to bring that question, put that question to the students, and we think that they have a right to know what options they have concerning that question. Now, the government classifies 2 kinds of conscientious objectors. Those that object to all war in any kind, and those who will object to participating in war as a combatant, but they'd be willing to serve as a non-combatant, such as a medic or a chef or something like that. Every day, 4,000 people register, 4,000 males register through the selective service system without even knowing what their options are. They're saying to the government, you call me and I'm your person. I will do whatever you say, go wherever you want, and kill whoever you tell me. They don't know what they're signing up to. When they register in the post office, they're told it's easy, it's quick, it's the law. They don't know what's beyond that. And Also, almost every state now has built a registration permission onto the driver's license, the application. So someone who signs up, I mean, that's something everyone looks forward to, is getting your driver's license. And who reads the back of the page where it says, I agree that my name will be sent to the Selective Services. I don't think it even says Selective Services, it says SSS. So who knows that? Yeah. All right, the DMV, so it's the SSS, who cares? So they, you know, and who would forego giving up their right to drive, you know, just to register?
If you don't sign that, you can't get a driver's license?
That's right.
That's right.
Really? They insinuate that, they actually got that.
Right.
Or the police state taking over that?
That's been there for a long time, hasn't it?
I think maybe since the 80s. I'm not too sure. So right away the question is a decision whether to register or not to register. If you don't register, there are penalties.
What are the
The penalties are $250,000 and maybe possibly facing jail. But no one, they haven't imposed that since the mid-1980s. But there are financial repercussions in that you cannot get any federal aid. Or you can, I don't think you can apply for a federal job. So there are repercussions. Now, if you do register, then there is a sequence of events. If there is a draft, now, you know, that's a big, we hope it's not a possibility, but it's still a probability. If the president's talking about an endless war, if everybody's talking about the troops being spread thin, all these cliches that we know, and the fact that the fact that the soldiers that are out there now are just worn out. You know, they're being recycled and they're still not out there. So there is a possibility somewhere down the line for a draft. The machinery is all in place. The rules are ready. The draft boards are set up. And it wouldn't take much to put it into effect. It would go along pretty quickly. All we need is the Congress and the President to work together to decide that there's some kind of a crisis. It's either a military crisis or the threat of a crisis, a threat of an attack, some kind of a natural disaster, and with the stroke of the pen, the draft could...
Just say no.
Yeah. All right. So the sequence of events is that it moves along pretty quickly. All those who are registered are put into a lottery, just like the last round, and anyone who is age 20 of the year this goes into effect would be called first, and then 21, 22, or something. This time there wouldn't be that many deferments. We know that the chain had quite a collection of them. But this time, if you're in college, you would only be allowed to finish the semester. If you're a senior, I think you can finish the year. But there aren't going to be the whole slew. The process moves quickly. Okay, so you only have 10 days after your name is called up. You have 10 days, and part of that, the card is coming through the mail. So you have like 7 days to make up your mind about being a CO. And if you want to do that, you can fill up a box on the card, and hopefully, and they have to honor that. But if you don't check off that box, then when you show up at the center, then you take a quick physical and you're on the bus, and that's it. And you're in there.
Does it apply to the men or women?
Beg your pardon?
Does it apply to men and women in draft?
That, if someone has been proposed,
Yes.
but
Men, right?
we don't have to register. This is background as to why we are focusing on this. The kids have to sort of create a picture of themselves. If you are, if you object on religious, moral, or ethical reasons, and you can prove it, then you have a CO status. But you can't just, as soon as you can't wait for your name to come up to get your act together. So you have to draw a picture of yourself. You have to, you can't just say, I'm a peace activist. I don't believe in violence, so pardon me, I'm not going. You're going to have to, build a file for yourself that draws a picture of yourself as to who you are.
A peace portfolio.
A peace portfolio. You like this? It's my big visual for tonight. Okay? But And you would, in this file you make yourself, you would include people who are important, who you admire, movies and songs and videos and TVs that have, and teachers and coaches and religious leaders and other people who have made an impression on your life and steered you to the way, to the person that you are now. And what have you done with your time? Who have you volunteered? Where have you volunteered? Where have you put your money? Where have you put your time? Have you worked for animal rights? Have you worked for cleaning the beaches? You've got one step. So doing the file is a really important thing, though. It doesn't have to be physical. Of course, it could be, a video. It could be a CD you put together. You build on it and put stuff into it as long as it's dated. You've got some kind of proof that you just didn't come upon this. And then you got your little card in the mail or the day the president signed it. And then you have to go to the draft board, in front of the draft board, and present your case. But you don't have to. It doesn't have to be a fancy big deal. As long as they know that you are sincere and you have some letters, of course, are very important, that you may have written, that you have collected from your circle of friends, from teachers, and so forth, testifying to your character and your beliefs and so forth. But I wanted to mention very quickly about the delayed entry program. That's another way that kids are signed up, as Karen mentioned, in the high schools. The military rely very, very heavily, I think so, up to 80% of their recruits come from the delayed entry program. And kids are told that they can't back out of that. And you don't have to be a CO to back out of that. All you have to do is just not show up. That's the best advice anybody can give you. When your shift date comes, don't go. Don't respond. And there are no legal repercussions for not going. They don't keep a record of it. It doesn't go anywhere. And they are forbidden to harass you. But of course, that is more honored in the breach than service.
Can you spell that out again? What is it called?
Delayed entry program. That's in the high schools, where they recruit the high school. They can sign up to a list when they reach the proper age or finish high school without their parents' permission. But they can get out, and there's no, just don't show up, don't respond. Okay, now the one other area then is the people who are in the military already who become conscientious objectors, and then it's much more difficult for them. But the one area, one resource they have is the GI hotline, and these are counselors, and they are always looking for volunteers to help them. You would have to be an expert. All you have to do is, because a hotline is a 24-hour thing. So they need people to volunteer for a couple of hours, maybe 2 hours a month or something, whatever you would want to get. And all you have to do is be there to answer the phone when someone calls up, and they're looking for some, to be the listener, and then to give them the basic information, and then to relay that call to the legal counselor, people who will, all know all the details and stuff. So if anybody feels that's something they could do, you would call the GI hotline and find out about their volunteer program. And then for the people who are in, who are in already, there are many now who have left the war, legally or most illegally. And a few of them have, formed a group called Courage to Resist. And one of them is Lieutenant Aaron Latata, whom you probably have heard of. And his case, I think it's not old right now, but he only protested one war, this particular war, so I don't know how that's going to work out. But I'd just like to read one statement that he made in that 3 weeks ago, Sergeant Hernandez from the 172nd Stryker Brigade was killed, leaving behind a wife and 2 children. In an interview, his wife said he had sacrificed his life so that his family could survive. I'm sure Sergeant Hernandez cherished the camaraderie of his brothers If given a choice, I doubt he would put himself in a position to leave his family, husbandless and fatherless. It's not yet, that's the point, you see. People like Sergeant Hernandez don't have a choice. The choices are to fight in Iraq or let your family starve. Many soldiers don't refuse this war en masse because, like all of us, they value their family over their own lives and perhaps their conscience. I tell you this because you must know that to stop this war, for the soldiers to stop fighting it, they must have the unconditional support of the people. I have seen this support with my own eyes. For me, it was a leap of faith. For other soldiers, they don't have that luxury. They must know it, and you must show it to them. Convince them that no matter how long they sit in prison, no matter how long this country takes to right itself, their families will have a roof over their heads, food in their stomachs, opportunities and education. This is a daunting task. It requires the sacrifice of all of us. Why must Canadians feed and house our fellow Americans who have chosen to do the right thing? We should be the ones taking care of our own. Are we that powerless? Are we that unwilling to risk something for those who can truly end this war? How do you support the troops but not the war? By supporting those who can truly stop it. Let them know that resistance to participate in an illegal war is not futile and not without a future. So, I mean, he's a great example, I think, to the rest of us. So the group is called CourageToResist.org, if anybody wants to follow it. I'm taking too much time.
You've done a lot of lobbying with our Congress people. Can you tell us some of the reactions that you got from, for example, Congressperson Israel when you lobbied him?
Well, I think everything is...
Go to the microphone.
Well, he sort of follows the same path that they all do, in that they're very welcoming. You sit around the table, and then he lets everybody at the table talk for a couple of minutes, and get their piece off their chest, and then he talks, and then you have no rebuttal at all. Then the time's up. So I don't like that part of it at all. Yeah. Because you don't have any time to challenge him.
What kind of strategies did he propose as pretty much the Democrats' strategies?
Right. It was to stall, basically to stall and put the president in a poor position. And that's it. To slowly let his ratings fall as they go through these different resolutions. And so he seemed perfectly willing to wait for the 2008 withdrawal. And he didn't agree with blocking any of the funding, as I recall, for the war.
But he did ask for a date certain?
He did ask for a date certain, and he did say that before that was a change of his stand from before. And he did admit that voting for the war was a mistake. And he took responsibility for that. But one person in the group, the mother of a Marine, and I think something that everybody there agreed with was, how come the average, we guys all knew it was wrong. How come we were all out on the streets, around the world, right? And yet they keep using that as an excuse if they really didn't know. If they knew now what they knew then. But we knew it now, right? And you'd like to say to him, how come? And I was glad this woman did ask that question.
Thank you.
Karen's turn.
Well, I had actually presented Tim Bishop, who's my congressperson, a whole pack of information about the whole opt-out policy, and I had asked him about the No Child Left Behind, and he seemed completely surprised that he didn't know that was in it. So I gave him all the information on it. He said he would get back to me, and that was about 2 years ago. And somebody has gone to meet with him and brought up the same issue, and again, still didn't know about it, so he didn't read my packet yet. So as soon as he does.
So everyone hold up and say, read Karen Sackett's packet. It's easy, the Sackett packet.
Yeah. The bills they're presented with, they don't read. They just signing.
Karen, I found both of you to be very humble. So I was wondering if there was any way you could recite a little bit of that you could about the accomplishments you've had, because I do think that you got some of the opt-out information started. Like going back to the beginning of counter recruiting, what are some of your successes?
Not the successes, there's not too many. Like I said, Patchogue Medford, the principal said he did get a lot of calls last summer from parents who weren't aware of recruiters being in the school, and he was limiting their access to the career and job fairs. And Ward Melville, you know, we spoke at a couple of, so I wasn't there, but a couple of people spoke at actually about 6 social studies classes. Besides that, we talked to school boards, and
Out on the streets, you've been very successful.
Do you think that any schools have actually revised their opt-out policy or printed anything differently based on what you guys did? That's what I'm looking for.
yeah, well, my district is William Floyd, and one phone call and they got it up on their website. Actually, a few of them have put it on their website, which is helpful.
Well, we did write a letter to the superintendent of schools, who we had a link there because he was right here in Northport. And we brought the information that there was no standard throughout the state about disclosing information about the No Child Left Behind. Every school was doing it differently. There were different deadlines for filing the opt-out and so forth. So he did send a letter to all the principals on Long Island saying, repeating, phrasing it just almost word for word, so they would shape up and get a uniform policy. But he doesn't have any binding authority. So I think maybe a few schools might pay attention. And a couple of schools have changed their information on the school calendar to try and make this opt-out. At least you can, if you want to read page 18A, it might be there, in a little bit more clear language. But they're very slow to move, like a glacier.
Haven't seen the bigger picture and see what's going on behind the picture.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, last night,
get educated, man.
Yeah. Last night I went to a meeting where there was people from Peace Action. I'm not sure the name of the group, but they're pushing the Department of Peace bill, which does have a domestic portion of it, which actually Steve Israel said he would endorse. Just the domestic part of it, and that teaches nonviolence, and it's a school directly.
What is the new ruling? Isn't there a new ruling that children have to opt out twice?
Yeah, well, actually, the Pentagon has hired a private company. It's outside the schools, though. They're actually collecting data from, like, these video game stores where kids will rent games, and they're getting information. Yeah, it's like multi-billion-dollar thing going on, and it's called the JAMRS, JAMRS. I don't know what
Advertising Market Research or something.
Yeah, and then there is a letter that we do have. You have to mail that right to this private company to opt out of that also. So even if you sign the opt-out, even if you sign this whole JAMRS thing, even if you don't take the ASVAB test, they get the kids' information from so many other places. The SAT actually has a box on it that you have to check if you don't want your scores sent to the military. And they can catch a kid on the street and bring them into the recruiting office. And even if they did all that, they still can get them.
And there's a connection between Kaplan that does the it helps kids prepare for the SATs. They're connected with the Department of Defense. They help make up the ASVAB test.
There's $4 billion a year spent on recruiting.
Wow, $4 billion?
$4 billion.
You said with $1 billion?
With $1 billion, not $1 million.
With a B.
$4 billion a year, just on recruiting. Yeah, you can contact us if anybody wants to help out with their own district. We're willing to go to any district on Long Island to help make a presentation to the school boards or meet with the administrators or a PTA meeting. You can call me. My cell phone number is 631-875-8647. We do have a website. It's spncr.active.ws, the website.